Okay, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. This is the third episode that I'm recording. Maybe it's the third episode that'll be uploaded, I'm not 100% sure. But in today's video, I'm just deciding to go all out there. I'm going to talk about my favourite albums, my favourite music, my favourite genres of music, artists that I recommend to you guys, bands that I recommend. Basically, this is just going to be a full-on music episode. Now, to kickstart this episode, I thought that I was going to talk about just what I would probably classify as like my favourite albums of all time, and maybe it's kind of go on like a nostalgic look back on music that I like used to listen to, have a little flick through my old playlists and stuff, because a lot of the old songs I used to listen to are still on my Spotify, and I am quite ashamed. Am I ashamed? I used to listen to a lot of pop music. I'm putting it out there. I used to listen to a lot of pop music. I don't anymore. I don't anymore. My favorite albums of all time are not pop albums. I can assure you of that. So you know what? I'm just gonna get straight into it. If you see me wander over to my laptop a couple times, it's because that's kind of where I've got everything set up, and like the lists and stuff for the albums that are my favourite and different things like that. So yeah. Okay, so I'm going to start this off pretty strongly. I would just like to say there is no order to these albums. This is just purely like just a random like throw-in of stuff. If I was to rank them, I really don't think I could. Like I'm pretty sure that would be like physically impossible. But we're going to start it off with Radiohead. Now I absolutely love Radiohead. I would say personally, I do prefer their older albums because I feel like now they've kind of gone to like this weird, what's the word, like, is it like electric? No, I don't know if electric is the right word. There's like a word for it, I don't know. But I prefer their older stuff because it's like a real, like what I would feel like is like rock. Like their newer stuff is kind of like that's psychedelic. Like I feel like some of their newer stuff is kind of like a psychedelic rock kind of thing, whereas the older stuff is just pure rock, and I really love that. So my favorite album from Radiohead is Pablo Honey. It is just phenomenal. I just don't even know how to explain why like some of these albums are just so good. Like I just love this album because it just feels like so new and fresh yet still old, if that kind of makes sense. Like just the guitar parts that they have in are just like so iconic. I mean, you've got Creep on there, which is like a really iconic song, but my favorite song from this album isn't actually Creep. I keep on wanting to say Creep. My favorite song on this album isn't Creep, it's actually Ripcord. I don't know what it is about this song, but there's just something about it that really attracts me. Just that little guitar part at the beginning, how it kind of like kick starts, you think that the song's about to like go into it, and then it kind of like dies down a little bit. There's just something about that song which just I just love, and I just love kind of like just the way that this album flows. Like it feels like it has a really good flow to it, and you kind of some songs don't feel like the end. It kind of just feels like it goes into the next song, and I really do like that about this album. It is beautiful. Don't get me wrong, on the topic of Radiohead, I really do love The Bends. The Bends is a great album, especially Plastic Trees. Chef's kiss of a song. But I don't know, like I said, there's just something about Pablo Honey which just, like, it just resonates with me, and it's just beautiful, and I just really love this album so much. So, yeah, Radiohead, Pablo Honey, exquisite. Okay, now again, this was a pretty hard decision to make on what album to pick, because this band is just like, words don't express the love that I have for this band. Like, I go through phases like where all I want to do all day is just listen to this band. It is the Smiths. My god, this band is honest to God. Like, I just don't have words to describe how much I love this band and how talented Morrissey is, and just all the rest of it. Literally just all the rest of it. Now, I would say my favourite album from them, and I don't know if I'm gonna get like, what's the word, like, people hate on me for this, but my favourite album is honestly literally just the Smiths. It's just like their debut self-titled album. And I don't know what it is about this album, but there's just something like every time I go back to it, I can just listen to it like from start to beginning. Like some albums I can listen to for a little while, and then I'm like, oh, I fancy listening to some other songs from this band. But honest to God, this album, just the self-titled, is just a masterpiece. Like, I can just listen to it from the start to the end, and it just has like some of my favourite songs on there. Like, I mean, like, let's be honest, you've got like This Charming Man in here, and that's the most like basic Smith songs ever. But personally, again, not my favourite song from the album. I don't actually know if I could pick a favourite song off this album. But then you've got like great songs such as like Hand in Glove, and then you've got Still Ill, Reel Around the Fountain, and it's just a beautiful album. Like the guitar parts in it, the lyrics. Don't even get me started on Morrissey's lyrics. Like, where does this man come up with the ideas from? Like, I should probably maybe do a bit of research into that. But like, just the creativeness of his lyrics are just amazing. Now, I do want to make a quick disclaimer and say that, especially on Spotify, I don't know if Hatful of Hollow is classified as an album, because if so, then that might be my favourite album. But on Spotify, it's classified as like like those things that Spotify do where it's like the compilations of stuff. On Spotify, that's classified as like a compilation. So I don't know if that's like it's an album, but it's not like. Do you know what I mean? You know when old bands who become like really famous, suddenly a lot of their songs just get put into like an album, but it's not actually like an album that the bands wrote, if that makes any form of sense. I do really love Hatful of Hollow. I think that takes a great combination of a lot of songs and just puts them together. But I would have to say that the Smiths, just the self-titled album, is great. I really do love the Smiths. I'm actually going to give a fun little story on the Smiths. When I first ever listened to the Smiths, how many times have I said the Smiths? When I first ever listened to them, it took me a little while to get into their music, because at this point in time I was going through like a massive phase where all I wanted to do was just discover loads of new bands, loads of new music, expose myself to like as many genres that I possibly could, and just like really get like into music, if that kind of makes sense. Like, really get into it, into loads of old bands and whatever else. And it took me a little while to warm up to them. I remember I think I first listened to them and I was a bit like, these are okay. Because I feel like at first, when you've kind of gone from listening to a certain genre to try and slide into a different genre of music, it can be quite a hard thing, especially for me personally. When I try and get into new artists, I try and start by listening to their first ever album and then starting to go on from there. Like, I'll find their first ever album, I'll click on it, and I'll just listen to that full album and just move on from album to album to album. I don't know if that's really the smartest way of doing it. I know on Spotify, obviously, you've got like the most popular songs, which I guess is a good way of kind of listening to it. But let's be honest, when you listen to a band's most popular songs, you probably might have heard of the songs before. A lot of the times I'm like, oh, let me go discover a new band. I'll click on the band and I'm like, oh wait, I've listened to this song before, and it's because I've just started listening to their most popular songs. So me personally, I kind of like to go back to their oldest album, listen to it from start to finish, and progress my way from the albums that way, because I also feel like you can really see a band's progression and where they're wanting to go from. Where they came from and where they're going to. And for me personally, that's how I like to listen to a band. And like I say, when I first listened to the Smiths, it took me a little while to get into them. I really had to push myself to keep going back. But then there was like this weird like moment where I kind of listened to them, and then that was it. I was just in love, and I'm now obsessed, and the Smiths is one of my favourite bands of all time. Next up, we have got Paris. Now this is spelled Pvris, not Paris. And let me tell you, let's go on like a little nostalgic trip here. Was it like year 8 or year 9? Year 8, year 9, little Amy. I went on YouTube. Was it YouTube that I went on? or did I just randomly discover them? Anyways, we'll go with the YouTube route. Anyway, I was on YouTube and I was like wanting to find different songs to listen to, and I found like this playlist kind of video thing, and I remember going on my phone looking up like all these bands and stuff, and on Spotify when it comes up like at the very bottom like of your playlist where it's like songs that you should listen to or bands that are recommended, that kind of thing. Either Paris was recommended within this playlist that I'd watched on YouTube, or it was recommended on the playlist on Spotify. And I remember the first ever song that I listened to by Paris was White Noise. No, sorry, that's the album. The first ever song that I listened to by Paris was You and I. And like I say, little year 8, year 9 Amy was sitting on the bus, the scholars bus, going to school or coming back from school, one of the two. I put on this song, turned my headphones up pretty loudly, and that was it. That was the vibes. I put the song on, and like I was just in love with this song, and I just had it in my playlist for years. And then it wasn't until like last year, I want to say, my friend was like, "Oh Amy, I have a band that I recommend to you. Listen to this album by Paris called White Noise." And I clicked on it, and like the artwork, that I was like, wait, I've seen this artwork before, and I was like, but where? And I clicked on it. The first song was You and I, and I was like, what the hell? It's been years since I've like listened to this band, but yet here we are with the absolute vibe of a song, You and I. Still a vibe, still love it. And then I clicked on that, listened to the album, and I was just in love. Like, this band... Sorry, maybe I should preface by saying my favourite album by Paris is White Noise. They've also got All We Know of Heaven, and then Something Something of Hell, which is a good album. I do have one of the favourite songs off there, which kind of resonates pretty deep within me. But the rest of the songs, I just like, but the first album's like just way better. And then they've also got their most recent album, Use Me, which is a banger of an album. Like, I would have said favourite albums by Paris go White Noise, then Use Me, and then All We Know of Heaven, Something Something of Hell. That kind of shows how much I love the album, doesn't it? Something Something of whatever. But like I said, Use Me is a great album. The way that was produced, let me tell you, as someone who was like trying to get into like producing their own music, whoever produced this is on something. Let me tell you, the vocals in this were phenomenal. The instrument, it was great. Like, just the way that album was produced was just fantastic. But my favourite album by Paris is White Noise, just because it has You and I on there. It has, like, if I was to like try and order the songs that I like on this album, I feel like I would just keep going back to it, because I don't think I could just singularly pick a song. Like, you've got great songs on there such as like St. Patrick. This song starts off and you think, oh, this sounds like a bit of a pop song, and then bang, out of nowhere the guitars hit you in the chorus. Suddenly you've got like all this just like noise, and it is just like it just makes you take a step back, and it's just amazing. If you've not listened to Paris, it's spelled Pvris. Obviously I would have had like a screenshot of the album that I'm talking about as I'm speaking about them. Honest to God, you need to give this album a listen. Like, they're just phenomenal. They're kind of like a rock, but like kind of like a punk kind of sound. Like, you Blink-182. I don't even know how to explain their sound. It feels pretty unique. Like, it doesn't really feel like many bands have done this before, but it's honestly, it's great. I love them so much. And then they've got My House on there, which again is a fantastic song. And then they've also got on there Mirrors. Now, the whole theme of this album I also really like as well. It's basically like a paranormal kind of theme. Mirrors is kind of like, you know, the whole thing that you used to see on Instagram when you were like 12, and it was like, if you go in the mirror at like 3 a.m. and say like Bloody Mary 3 times into the mirror, like, she's gonna appear behind you. It was like some crap like that. That's basically what this song is about, Mirrors. It's kind of like, it's just about all like this paranormal stuff, and I didn't actually realise this until my friend taught me about it. She was like, oh yeah, by the way, this album's like totally based off of like paranormal stuff. And I was like, wait, what? And I re-listened back to the album, and I was like, oh crap, yeah, it is. Because it kind of, the way that it was wrote, it kind of Lynn wrote it. Oh, I love Lynn. She's such an icon. She is such an icon. What an absolute queen Lynn is. Sorry, anyways. Queen Lynn, Jesus Christ. Lynn's the main singer of Paris. Well, I say main, I think she's the only singer in Paris, unless there's some backing vocals that I don't know. Anyway, you get my gist. Just like listening back to the album, the way that she kind of like wrote it kind of makes it seem as though it's like about a relationship, but then like when you find out what it's actually about, you start like piecing the bits together and you're like, oh yeah, this actually is paranormal. So yeah, just the way that the album was wrote it's just phenomenal, and I absolutely love it. And yeah, that's one of my other favourite albums, White Noise by Paris. Please give it a listen. You will not regret it. Next up, we've got Catfish and the Bottlemen, and my favourite album by them is The Balcony. Now, this was their first album that they made, and to me, it just feels like very nostalgic to listen to it. Again, I think I kind of started listening to these more like 2019, 2020 time. I have to admit, a lot of these bands that I am mentioning are not bands that I've like been into for massively of years. As such, some of them I have, but a lot of them are more recent times. I say recent, like the past like 2 to 3 year, and that's just because like suddenly I wanted to like change the music that I listen to, and I do not regret it. The music that I used to listen to was absolute crap. The stuff that I listen to now is like god tier. So like these are a lot of like more recent ish albums that I kind of like have just like taken over my life and like are just my favourites. But The Balcony by Catfish and the Bottlemen, it's just phenomenal. Like you've got Kathleen on here, you've got Homesick on here. Homesick, by the way, I can never get over this song. Like there's just something about like that guitar bit at the start which is just like so catchy and so like mesmerizing, and I just love it. And then you've also got Cocoon on there. The first time I ever heard Cocoon, I was like, this is mad. Like I just felt so mesmerized by it, and it felt like really like psychedelic. Like Catfish and the Bottlemen are not like a psychedelic band at all. They're just indie, like a rock indie kind of thing. But just the way that Cocoon was wrote, I don't know, it to me it just feels really like weird, but I love it and it's so good. Now the order that I do like the Catfish and the Bottlemen albums in, I don't know if this is going to be controversial, so again, if I'm going to get hate from this, I'm going to get hate. This is my personal preference and I don't really care. But it goes The Balcony, The Balance, then The Ride. So it goes their first album, their most recent album, then their second album. Now, I don't know if this is controversial. I know a lot of people do like The Ride, but for me, I don't know what it was. This album kind of felt more like on the down low, and I really loved like their full indie rock kind of sound, and that's what I got from The Balcony and The Balance. Whereas The Drive kind of felt like it took a step back. Like, don't get me wrong, it is a great album. I really do like it, but for me personally, I kind of just loved like the indie rock sound that you get from The Balance and The Balcony, whereas The Ride kind of feels like it just takes a bit of a step back, kind of has more of like an acoustic kind of rock sound, which like I say, I do love. Personally, just The Balcony and The Balance are just my two personal favourite preferences. Now, getting on to my next favourite album, we have The Stone Roses. Now, I go through like really weird phases with this band where like I'll absolutely love them and I'll just non-stop listen to them, and then I kind of don't listen to them for a little while, and I'm currently on the path of not listening to them for a little while. But when I tell you I listen to them, and it's just their self-titled album. The first album, in my opinion, is much better than their second album. I'm not a massive fan of their second album really at all. I feel like it just has like a bit of too much of like a weird sound for me. But again, that's just personal preference. If you like the second album, you like the second album. But for me personally, just The Stone Roses is just phenomenal. You've got like The Waterfall on there, She Bangs the Drums, just all these like Fool's Gold, like all these like absolute iconic songs that when I just listen to, especially like The Waterfall, it just gives you like such good vibes. Like there's just too much from the album where it just gives you like good vibes, and it just gives you like indie rock good vibes. And I just love the fact that it still feels like such a fresh album, even though it's like God knows how many years like since it was made. And it just, every time I listen to it, it just feels like so uplifting and so powerful. I think this is another reason why it's one of my favorite albums. It is such like a powerful album, and it doesn't like, you know, like when some albums kind of have like a sad song on there and you kind of get in your zone. This album to me, just like all the way throughout, it just feels, no matter what song it is, it just feels so powerful, and I just love it. And the Stone Roses are just phenomenal, and after speaking about it, I think I'm just gonna go listen to them. So yeah. Now my next band is Wallows with their album Nothing Happens. I want to give an honourable mention though to the Spring EP, and also the songs Pulling Leaves Off Trees and Uncomfortable. Uncomfortable, I feel somewhat inclined to say, might be my favourite song from Wallows. It's just literally fantastic. I just love that guitar part, that really dirty guitar part that you get at the start, that just kind of has like that riff, and then it kind of comes in, gets rid of that guitar part, and then comes back to it in the chorus. For me, I don't know, it just feels like such an aesthetic song as well, and I just literally love it. But Nothing Happens. Sorry, I say that they're one of my favourite bands and go on to talk about how much I love them and then get the name of the album wrong. That looks great. But the album Nothing Happens is, I feel like, in like the 20th century, excuse me, what are we living in the 90s? The 90s, the 1900s even. My god, I'm not with it today, am I? In the 21st century, currently it being like 2021, I feel like, to me personally, this album has such a iconic sound, and I feel as though it kind of spiraled into this whole new genre of music, which kind of hasn't been done before. You've kind of got like Clairo, who does this genre as well, and now like a lot of other people who have kind of gone into it, but it's like your bedroom pop indie kind of thing, which is statistically, factually, I don't know what the word is, technically it comes from like people just making music in their own room and just making pop songs, and I know that Nothing Happens was like properly produced and stuff, like they didn't produce it, but they kind of like spiraled into this whole like new bedroom indie kind of sound. And this album, I literally just love everything about it. Like, favourite songs off there: Sidelines, absolutely amazing. Only Friend, again, absolutely amazing. Scrawny, what a bop of a song. Like, you literally can't not dance when you listen to that song. Remember When, again, just the guitar part in the start of the song is, it's literally just so good. Like, it's just so catchy. It's so like indie, like, it's like indie-esque, if that kind of makes sense. As sometimes I feel like when I'm trying to explain why I like these albums, I don't really have any words to comprehend why I like them. There's just like a sound that I just love about them. Like, I mean, the Wallows, for example, I've listened to them now for like quite a while, but like also quite religiously as well. It's not a band that I've kind of like come back to every now and again. Like, I've listened to them like properly for a while. But like, trying to explain why I like their songs, it's just like trying to explain why your favourite pet is your favourite pet, or why your favourite child is your favourite child. I just physically can't explain why. And I guess maybe I have watched a lot of Wallows interviews, so I guess maybe a lot of their stuff I really do like, because they try and write their songs based off of what it's kind of like to have like your pre-adult days, your teen years. They kind of write like a lot of songs which are about like just what it's like to be a teenager kind of thing. And I feel like that's why I like a lot of these songs for. Like, a lot of these lyrics that you kind of hear, I feel like they're just really fitting and they're just really relatable, which I guess is probably another reason why they're so popular. They just kind of feel like really relatable, these lyrics, and you kind of feel like they understand how you're feeling in a sense. Like, Only Friend, for example, like, just the title, Only Friend, it kind of explains how like lonely you can feel in your teen years when you feel like you have only one friend, or you feel like really alone and that kind of stuff. And then it kind of goes on to, you know, different songs which kind of, for me personally, I'm kind of like, whoa, why do I relate to this song? But there's just something about it that I just do relate about. And yeah, I don't know. I really love Wallows. Like they're one of my all time like favorite bands. Like I just love them so much. Now, next up, we're gonna go to, this is a band that I could talk about forever. I have been a fan of them now since 2014, which was 7 years ago, which is absolute madness to think that these guys have been my favourite band for 7 years. Now, I just want to make a quick disclaimer. A lot of the time when I say that this band is my favourite, I feel like it really sets up a lot of people for thinking like this is the genre of music that I listen to and the only. It's not at all. This band is not a representative of what songs I like, literally at all. They are just my favourite band because I've listened to them since 2014. Everything they release, I love. And just who they, like, literally growing up with them is, like, another reason why they're my favourite band. Like, I feel as though I've kind of grown up with them. Even though they are, like, 6-7 years older than me, it's obviously, like, that. Do you know what I mean? Like, when you grow up with a band, but they're not the same age as you? Or is that just me? It's probably just me. But yeah, I feel like a lot of people have been waiting for this. 5 Seconds of Summer. I feel like I need a round of applause for these guys. Like, just, where do I begin with this band? The first band that I ever went to see at a gig. They're the only band I've ever seen at a gig. Sad times, because Corona kind of came round when I wanted to go out to and see a lot more gigs. But nevertheless, we move. Once gigs start coming round, I'm going to as many as I possibly can. But 5 Seconds of Summer for me, I feel like since I've like grown up with them, since I was like literally, how old was I in 2014? Since I was like 12 years old, 11, 12 years old, and I'm now 18, their songs to me I've like grown up with. And it's really funny because especially their first album with English Love Affair, when I first listened to that song, I was just like, oh, what a bop of a song, let's dance to this. And then like I got older and I was like, I used to dance to this song? What are these lyrics? Excuse me, what? Yeah, sorry if there's been like a cut there. Basically, I just ended up having to have my tea. So we're gonna just jump straight back into it. Essentially, what I was on about is how just like growing up with 5 Seconds of Summer and speaking about English Love Affair, and how like suddenly the lyrics were just like not what I expected them to be at all about, and just different stuff like that. And it kind of feels like really nostalgic and somewhat now like relatable looking back on the lyrics and stuff. Because I kind of like when you're like 12, 11, the lyrics don't mean anything. You just like the song because of like, you know, whatever. But obviously, of course, there's like a couple lyrics that you listen to. Like Never Be, for example. We'll never be as young as we are now. That's always something that's going to resonate with no matter what age you are, because you are never going to be as young as you are now. And I just literally, just 5 Seconds of Summer for me, I feel like it's honestly just amazing seeing them grow up. Now, obviously, before I get into which album is my favourite, I feel like I'm probably just going to give away a bit of a clue with this. Their self-titled album, which was just 5 Seconds of Summer, was their first album. Then they had their second album, which came out a year later, which was Sounds Good Feels Good. And then it was like 2 years later in 2018 when Youngblood came out. And then it was another 2 years, and then they released Calm, which is, it's just their names put together, Callum, Ashton, Luke and Michael. But obviously, like, this is something that like fans had been on about for years. Now, for me, with 5 Seconds of Summer, it does feel really weird, like, having been a fan of a band for like 7 years, because I kind of watched them be like these like teenagers. Like Luke was like 8, like 16, like 17, 18 even, sorry. And, you know, they kind of grew up being like these innocent like teens, really. And then obviously they kind of got like more popular, and their second album was like when a lot of rumours were kind of going around about the band, just with things that like Luke had said, and them like sexualizing. Was it them sexualizing or being sexist? It was one of the two, but something like that on like an article in the Rolling Stone. But let's be honest, the Rolling Stone is a very controversial magazine, so I kind of took that with a grain of salt. But feel like ultimately what I'm trying to say is I've kind of watched them grow from these like teenagers to like these stupid younger adults into these like amazing adults, if that kind of makes sense. I don't really know if that makes any form of sense, but I feel like they're just my favourite band just because of like the interaction, the connection that they have with the fans, that even after all like the controversies and different stuff that they've kind of gone through, they're still, you know, they're still good people. It was just obviously like you know, you do bad things, like no one's perfect, and it kind of feels strange like knowing where the band is at right now. I originally got into 5 Seconds of Summer because I really loved music which was like Good Charlotte, All Time Low, Blink 182, that kind of genre, like the pop punk kind of thing. And I discovered 5 Seconds of Summer actually from my mum. My mum was like, oh yeah, Amy, there's this really good song that I think that you should listen to. And me being me, I was like, oh god, what's Karen banging on about? What song could I possibly like that she's mentioned? And so it came on the TV, and I heard it, and like literally, it wasn't even like I've got to listen to the band a couple times to get into the music. It was She Looks So Perfect. It was like number one at the time, and I was just instantly in love with the band since then. And I listened to that, and then next thing I know, they were releasing their first album that year. So I bought that, and then I listened to that, and then I feel like everything kind of just came, like, what's the word, like everything just aligned with them. It was like I discovered them, and then suddenly they released the album, and then next thing I know, for Christmas I got gig tickets, and then I went to the gig, and then I was like, wow, this band's really good. Looked at them a little bit on YouTube, and then suddenly next thing I knew that they'd released Sounds Good Feels Good, and I was like, like what the hell, like this album's absolutely amazing. And then, sorry, I've just realised they released Sounds Good Feels Good, and it was 3 years later that they released Youngblood. My apologies, not 2, it was 3 years later, which is why a lot of us fans were feeling a bit like, it's been 3 years since we've heard anything. The only song that they had released between then was Girls Talk Boys, which was from the Ghostbusters soundtrack, and that was the only thing that we'd got in 3 years, at least I'm pretty sure. Obviously, like, they toured after they released the self-titled, but like in terms of like new songs and stuff, that was the only song that we got, and it just felt really weird, like they kind of became disconnected that year. But anyways, going back to like just things aligning with them, then next thing I know, like I say, Sounds Good Feels Good was released, and then next thing I know, I'm getting tickets to go see them again, and then it was just kind of like thing upon thing upon thing, and then I just, like, next thing I knew, I was just instantly like, I just loved their music and what they did. And then, you know, they took like this 3-year hiatus. Obviously a lot of people were like, oh yeah, it was nice to have a break, I bet, you know, like doing nothing. Obviously in the 3 year they were like making music, finding this whole new sound. And then next thing everybody knows, Youngblood's released. The first song that they released as a single was Want You Back. Now I'm going to be completely honest here, I heard Want You Back, and it was either Ashton or the band had captured a post on Instagram saying this is what their new sound's going to be like. I heard Want You Back, and I'm going to be completely, I was heartbroken. I heard Want You Back, I was like, okay, this is a good song, but this is their new sound? And I was just like, there's no way that they've gone from being like this pop punk band to this full on pop band. Like that's just what Want You Back was. It was just a pop song. It was a fairly decently good pop song. I love the song, but it just didn't feel real, that they'd gone from like this real pop punk sound to this complete and utter different kind of vibe, and I wasn't really ready for the whole album to sound like that. But you know, nevertheless, they released the album Youngblood, and I was like, do you know what, I'm gonna listen to it, because, you know, just because they say that this is going to be the new sound, it doesn't mean that that's actually what it's going to be about. And I listened to the album, and I was just swept off my feet, because Want You Back was not what the album was like at all, in my opinion. Want You Back was a very pop song. Yes, the songs that they did release were pop, but it was nothing like Want You Back. Like, they had like this whole different kind of sound, and I loved Youngblood. Youngblood was fantastic. It still is. And then they released Calm, which came out last year in March, so like nearly a whole year ago now. And I'm gonna be completely honest, this album was great, but it's not my favourite by far. Like, it's like, how do I explain this? Because I don't have a least favourite album from them. I just feel like Youngblood and Calm are kind of like on the same level, if that kind of makes sense. Because the songs that are on Calm feel like just incredibly mature. Like, I listened to Youngblood and I was like, wow, this album's mature. But then Calm came out, and that was just a whole different sound yet again, and it just felt so much grown up yet again, because you've got like great songs on there like Wildflower, and then you've got like Thin White Lies with that amazing like guitar sound at the beginning, and then you've got like Lover of Mine, Lonely Heart, which is such a good song, but then you've got like rock songs on there like Teeth and that. And in my opinion, Easier, when that was first released, they were like, right, this is the first single from a new album. I heard it, a little bit disappointed, I can't lie. Easier was co-written with Charlie Puth, and in my opinion, you can really, really tell that, purely just because it just sounds like a Charlie Puth song. It does not sound like a 5 Seconds of Summer song. However, 5 Seconds of Summer then went on to release a couple Live from the Vault versions of their songs from the album, and the Live from the Vault version of Easier is amazing. One of my favourite songs off the album. So it kind of goes from like being the least song on my least favourite song on the album, to my favourite, purely because they turned the song into their own kind of genre. I'm supposed to go see them live in May. Whether that happens or not, who knows at this point. It was supposed to happen last year, it didn't. It's supposed to happen this year, it's probably not May time. If they do it next year, honestly, I don't know at this point, but if I could get my money back, if they're not going to do it, that would be greatly appreciated, because those tickets were pretty expensive. But yeah, like I say, if I was to go see them live, and they did pretty much all of their newer songs off the album as though it was the Live from the Vault versions, I would not be disappointed. Like, if that's what they were going to perform, I would be amazed. Like, I love the Live from the Vault versions. They are like 10 times better than the originals of the songs. I love all of the Live from the Vault versions. I think another thing with this band as well, 5 Seconds of Summer, that just keeps me coming back to them is how good they are live. Like, it really does not matter whether you look at their more recent stuff or their older stuff, they have always been a great band live. Obviously, like, their first ever shows that they play in the Annandale Hotel, or however you pronounce that, I'm not from Australia, where they perform to like 12 people. Obviously, those shows don't compare to like when they're like performing with One Direction, and then they're performing in their own arenas, that kind of thing. But just in general, this band for me has just always been amazing live, just to see how like much passion that they really put into their live shows, like the guitars, the vocals, Ashen with his drumming, just like everything about the live shows is what I love. I feel like sometimes you might go and see a live show of a band and maybe be a bit disappointed just because it's not what you heard on the record, but 5 Seconds of Summer to me never disappoint. Anyways, moving on to my favourite album, from 5 Seconds of Summer. I feel like if you can't tell, it's either going to be out of 5 Seconds of Summer or Sounds Good Feels Good, and for me, I think I'm going to have to put it on Sounds Good Feels Good. This album kind of came at a time where, you know, I was kind of in that bit of a phase where you're kind of like starting to grow up, and then because it was the only album that was new for like 3 years, I really did grow up with that album to the point where, like, when Youngblood came out, I was like 15, 16. So like Sounds Good Feels Good really was like the anthem of me growing up. And it just like feels so, like, obviously for me now, really nostalgic, because I listened to that when I was like 13 maybe. So like looking back, it's kind of a lot of like, damn, little 13-year-old Amy was feeling some emotions here. But then it's kind of like a lot of just the lyrics and some of their songs are just like so beautiful, like even ones that I don't personally relate to, like I don't know, let's look at Outer Space for example. I probably don't relate to that, but it's just that album to me feels more like a concept than it does just like a bunch of songs put together. Like it really feels like it was thought out, especially when you've got songs on there like Outer Space, Waste the Night, one of my favourite songs ever, and that performed live is absolutely phenomenal. It's a beautiful song, and the guitar part in it just feels really like, it feels like I'm coming home when I hear that guitar part. Maybe it's as weird as that sounds, I'm like, that's how I feel about it. And then you've got like She's Kind of Hot on there, which is such a good song. And then again, you've got like Jet Black Heart on there and Invisible, which are just two songs that are just like really resonate with, I feel like, no matter who you are. especially if you've been through some stuff. They're just great songs. So I think just Sounds Good Feels Good for me, it just takes the crown on that one. It is just such a good album, and I really don't think that I could like pinpoint anything that is bad from that album. So yeah, there's my little rant about 5 Seconds of Summer. I'm sure we all knew that it was coming. But anyways, getting on to my last favourite album. My Mac's saying that it's gonna sleep unless I put it on charge, so 1 second. So getting on to my last favourite album, it is The Neighbourhood by Blink-182. Again, Blink-182 is like a childhood anthem kind of band for me. This was like the phase where you kind of think you're going through your angsty phase when you're really not. It's just, you just like the music, it's cool. But The Neighbourhood for me, obviously as I've getting older, kind of looking back on their albums, I really love Eminent of State. That is a great album. And some of their other albums, like their really first ever albums, for me personally, they're just not for me. I feel like I can't really get into that. But as they kind of progress, especially with The Neighbourhood, to me that is just my favourite album. Just the way that it was written. Ultimately, I mean, you've got like the little interlude in the middle. 1 second. You've got like the interlude in the middle, Heart's All Gone, and that interlude for me is just, it's just so beautiful. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but I hear this interlude and like I just get filled with like so many different emotions, and it's just such a beautiful, beautiful album, and this song is just amazing. Like, genuinely, I would have said that the interlude is one of the favourite songs in the album for me. I know you're probably thinking like, what the hell, like there's no singing in it, there's no nothing, but I think that's what's really good. It kind of goes from this interlude in the middle of the album, kind of breaking down the album, to then into this other, obviously into Heart's All Gone, and then it kind of brings you into the next part of the album, and it just feels really good, and I just really love this album. It really does just take a crown from me. I love it. It's just absolutely phenomenal. Now, I'm gonna obviously keep on speaking about music. I'm not really sure how long I've recorded this podcast for, but I don't really care if I can get it to like the hour mark or whatever. Cool. But like, for me personally, I've got a lot of honourable mentions who kind of come under, I don't know, I guess this is just some artist recommendations to you guys, whether that's bands or solo artists or, you know, or what. I'm currently going to put up a few lists on screen right now for you guys. Now, I essentially went through my phase in like 2019 where I really wanted to like rebrand and really, I don't even know what the word is, really learn and educate myself just on all types of music. So I just constantly asked my friends, like, give me bands that you recommend. And you know, there was like a select few friends, I would have said like 4 or 5, where their music was like really what I wanted to get into, and I started to just constantly ask them for ideas, and I just wrote them all down on a list on my phone. I've still got the list to this day because I just kind of add to it and tick off stuff like when I've listened to it, and you know, etc, etc. But yeah, like I say, if you're really looking for music at the moment, I have got up on screen right now like so many bands and artists that you can listen to that you're going to be here for days on it. Obviously, I feel as though a lot of my friends probably have listened to a lot of this music because I did ask a lot of my friends for recommendations. But even if there's like 2-3 artists on here who you've never heard of before, or 2 or 3 artists who you've heard of but you would like to get into the music, then you know, what more of an opportunity is this, considering I'm given a lot of recommendations here. I would just like to make a disclaimer. As writing this list, there was a few artists on there who I'd never heard of before, but looking back, I've now heard of them, and their genre of music I know for a fact is not for me. I think I've got Skepta on there, and Skepta's more of like a rap artist. Don't get me wrong, I'm going to be completely honest here, guilty pleasure, I do quite like some rap music. I am very picky on it, but I do quite like some of it. I don't know about Skepta though, I've not listened to his stuff. So like I say, there might be a few artists on here who you're thinking, Amy, what the hell music are you listening to? But the more diverse your music taste is, the more I feel like of an opinion you have on what criticisms you can make on music and give an opinion of music on, because you're just more educated, if that kind of makes sense. But ultimately, a lot of these bands I have listened to, I kind of just like tick them off and stuff when I'd listen to them, but honestly a lot of them. I need to go back and re-listen to their stuff, because some bands on there have like 7-8 albums, which is like, it's quite a lot to get through, like when you think about it. Like, for example, looking at like Wallows and Catfish and the Bottlemen in Paris, like they've got like 1 to 3 albums, which is like easy peasy to get through. But like some bands which are old, like I don't know, like let's go with like U2 for example, or like Queen, they have like album upon album upon album, and it's quite a lot to get through. So a lot of these people who I've like got ticked off or whatever, I really do need to go back and just listen to more of their music, because again, there's some bands on there which I've ticked off, which I really like, but I've only listened to them like a couple times, and it's like those bands that I need to go back to and really get myself into. Anyways, there's a list for people who are interested, but I've got my honourable mentions coming up next, so let's start off. We've got Royal Blood. Their sound is just absolutely phenomenal. In my opinion, I would say it's pretty unique. They've kind of gone for this bass guitar kind of sound, and by that I don't mean a bass guitar, I mean they've literally used the bass as a guitar. And just the way that they do this is like so intricate and amazing, and their albums are like so rock heavy. I just love their stuff. It's honest to God amazing. So there's Royal Blood for you. Now recently, and I'm talking about recently, like literally today, I have really been getting into Queen. I stopped, like, Queen was always one of those things that when I was little, my dad would always have on, my mum would always have on, and it's one of those bands that when I listen to their music, obviously now, it's very, very nostalgic, because I remember listening to this stuff when I was like 4 or 5, you know, going on like maybe it's earlier than that. But at the moment, I've really been listening to Queen. I didn't listen to them for literal years, just because of a couple personal things that happened, and I was like being a stubborn little so-and-so, being like, I'm not listening to them. But recently, I was like, you know what, screw it, I want to get into Queen. I listen to Queen, I am completely obsessed. I'm in love with Don't Stop Me Now. I've been going outside, and just when I'm outside, I get like the whole main character energy when I'm listening to this song. I was out walking, going downhill, it was quiet, there was no people around, there was no cars around, there was nothing around, and next thing I know, in the middle of wherever, I'm just singing. I'm literally just bursting out loud singing Don't Stop Me Now, because I just felt that main character energy, you know. But I'm serious, like I'm serious. Their songs just bring such good energy, and they just feel like really nostalgic. That Queen for me is just a must band. Like obviously everybody likes Queen. They've always been a great band. When I was 12, you would have asked me about Queen and I would have been like, yeah, they're great. But like now, I love them. Anyways, let's move on. Next honourable mention is Joy Division. Now, their stuff is one of those bands where I like their stuff, but I really need to go back and listen to it, so this is kind of like more of a reminder for me than anything. Did you know that one of their songs, the 1975, actually, I don't know if the word sampled is correct, because like they didn't steal it or anything, but they have a guitar part that Joy Division used in their song. So yeah, fun fact. Block Party, another honourable mention. They have a lot of songs which are great for relationships, like relationship songs. A lot of this music I got into when I was in a relationship, and I don't know, I just like Block Party's music. I kind of feel like it gives, you know, late night drive vibes. That's what I get from them. So yeah, there's Block Party. Another artist, Harry Bloody Styles. How can we not talk about Harry Styles? This man is an icon. Let me say that louder. This man is an icon. His albums for me are just like fantastic. Like they're just honestly amazing. Like you've got Harry Styles, the self-titled. At least I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. I'm gonna look like a really bad fan here. You know what? I don't care. I'm sure it's called Harry Styles. If not, sue me. And then obviously you've got Fine Line, which is his most recent album. And for me personally, Harry Styles is my favourite solo member from One Direction, in the way that he's like wrote his songs, because a lot of them I feel as though have like gone for more of like the pop kind of genre. Obviously, if you were to categorise Harry Styles in any kind of genre, it probably is, a lot of people would say pop, especially with Adore You and like Watermelon Sugar. But then you've got songs like Cherry or Kiwi or Only Angel or Meet Me in the Hallway, Canyon Moon. You know, you get my gist, you get my flow, which just aren't pop songs. Like, there's no way in hell you can look me in the eyes and go, Kiwi is a pop song. Like, there's no way in hell that Kiwi is a pop song. It is a phenomenal rock song, and I love it. And I think Harry Styles is one of my favourite artists purely because his albums have such a diversity on them. Like, he kind of doesn't care if he writes a pop song or if he writes the next best rock song. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, Harry Styles for sure. Falls, just an indie band. Number, what a song. Literally, what a bop. I was at work one time and this song came on as I was in the changing room and I was just vibing, you know. But yeah, Falls, amazing band. Next up we've got U2, again an older band, but also a great band. Again, this is another artist on here who I'm reminding myself to listen to. I love their music, but I've not listened to it enough to give a full official opinion on it, if that kind of makes sense, but I know that I like it. So yeah. Next up we've got the Beatles. Now again, the Beatles was one of those bands that I went to and I was like, holy crap, they have got a lot of albums. So this was a band that I kind of slowly made my way through because of just how many albums that they have. I think personally I prefer like the first albums that they released, kind of like that, you know, that 60s kind of the pop kind of thing. Obviously if you look back on it now, it's just old Britpop, but obviously I think the Beatles are probably more classified as maybe like a rock band. I'm not sure, but like obviously it's not the same pop that you would listen to like nowadays. If the Beatles pop was what you listen to nowadays, that would be the best pop music ever, because pop music nowadays isn't always that good. Don't get me wrong, I can vibe with a few songs, and I'm gonna be honest, some pop music is good, but a lot of it I really don't like. So yeah, you've got the Beatles. Obviously, like, everybody's heard of these. Again, just another band that just reminds me of my childhood, like Yellow Submarine, Strawberry Fields, Lucy in the Sky. All songs that I just remember my dad just having on constantly, and it just brings back such good memories. Next up, we've got Nirvana, just a typical grunge band. I really started getting to Nirvana again more like recently. It's another band that I really do need to give more of a listen to, but I just do love their stuff. Like, it's just so good and iconic. Next up, we've got Sex Pistols. Again, another band that I'm just reminding myself to listen to. I listened to Anarchy in the UK and I fell in love. And yeah. Oh, another band is Velvet Underground. I can't remember which song it was from these, but I heard this song and I loved it, and I need to listen to them more. So I'm reminding myself, Amy, listen to Velvet Underground more. Next up, we've got Dayglow. This is a definite indie kind of vibe. Obviously, he brought out his album Fuzzy Brain, which is a phenomenal album. It's obviously not my favourite, but Can I Call You Tonight on there, I'm pretty sure like every person who somewhat maybe likes indie music, you will have heard of this song before. It's great, I love it. Again, the album is just such a vibe, but also another artist that I need to listen to more. However, because he only has one album released, it's a great, more recent artist to listen to as well, and that you can kind of get into. Next up, now I want to preach this band more than anything. I discovered this band in York in 2017. It was like Christmas time. I went to the market and I remember getting this video on my Snapchat. However, this makes me look like a great fan. I changed my Snapchat account in 2018 and I did not move any of my memories over from my old Snapchat onto my new one. So essentially this video that I have on Snapchat where I loved this band, it's just gone forever. So well done, Amy. Even though they're like, I love this band so much. But King No One, you seriously need to listen to English. You seriously need to listen to these. If you like indie music, but that psychedelic rock that I was on about, they're like a great combination of the both, and just listen to them. Like, seriously, you won't be disappointed. Like, they've got songs on there like Lemonade, Prophet, and then they've got like their first EP, which I really need to listen to more, because the second EP I listened to, and that has just got so many good songs on. Like, I honestly, I can't preach enough. Please go and listen to King No One if you've not, because you're not going to regret it. They're from York, so like from where I'm from, they're a pretty close band, and they're just amazing. Please just listen to them. Next up, we've got Rat Boy, another indie band, another band I'm reminding myself to listen to. We've also got the Mysterines. Again, if you want to get yourself into a band that hasn't really been founded, listen to the Mysterines and watch them grow, because their stuff is great. They've got a couple of EPs out, but they're like a newish band, so listen to it. We've also got the Driver Era. Now, the Driver Era, for me, I love this band so much. They have the album X released, which I'm like 99.99999% sure that it's called X because it's got 10 songs on the album. And I'm saying I think this because I'm pretty sure it does have 10 songs on the album. Excuse me, sorry. But the Driver Era, I don't even know how to explain this genre of music. It's like an indie kind of thing, but it's also not indie, but it's not pop. It's like, give them a listen and you'll find out. Next up, we've got Ashton Irwin. So Ashton is from 5 Seconds of Summer. I don't know why I had to think on that, but Ashton's from 5 Seconds of Summer, and just literally slap bang out of nowhere in 2020, he was like, "Oh guys, I'm releasing my own solo album," and everyone was like, "What?" Ashton's the drummer in the band, and you don't really hear him sing that much. Like, obviously he does some backing vocals, and when he does sing, it's amazing. But then when he was like, "I'm releasing my own solo album," I was just kind of like, "Hold up, you what?" Like, I need to listen to this. I kid you not, please go and listen to Super Bloom. Like, straight after you've listened to this podcast, obviously finish this podcast first. Go and listen to Super Bloom, because, in my opinion, if you were to take the Beatles, Queen, probably just the Beatles and Queen, and made them more modern, and made songs from them, Ashton's Super Bloom album is exactly what you would get. You have got the Sunshine interlude on there. You've got, oh god, I'm not 100% sure on all the songs that he has, but you've got, I think, like, I would have said easy, like 2 to 4 songs on the album which are just so Beatles-esque that it's just phenomenal. But like, he's made it in a way where it's like Beatles inspired, but like it doesn't feel like stolen from the Beatles. He's kind of made it his own. And again, Queen, I'm pretty sure it's in the song Bittersweet, but there is a solo after one of the verses in that album, and if this is not a Queen solo, then God knows what it is, because it is such a it's such a beautiful guitar solo, and it is so Queen-like. It's just honestly amazing. And again, another thing I really like about Ashton is kind of when he's made this solo album, he didn't quit 5 Seconds of Summer or anything. I should maybe just make a disclaimer. This album, for me personally, again, is kind of Harry Styles-esque. I originally, at first, I was like, right, this album is going to be a lot like Harry Styles solo, but it just wasn't. But like, the way that he's done his songs reminds me of Harry Styles, if that kind of makes sense. Sorry, not the way he's wrote the songs, but basically, Ashton kind of also went with the whole thing of not sticking to a genre in his music, which is what I find Harry Styles does. In the way that Ashton just did this was just amazing. So yeah, go listen to Super Bloom. We've also got The Hunter, again, another band that I'm reminding myself to listen to. Joy Again, this is just more of a recent band that I've heard, and I liked one of their songs, so I'm just kind of reminding myself. We've got Placebo. Now, this is more of like a very grunge kind of band, and I've not really listened to their stuff, but what I have listened to, I do like, and again, it's just there to remind myself. We've got Sam Fender, again, what can I say about Sam Fender? Indie northern god. I just love his music. Like, for me personally, two people play God, or I have no words. They're just amazing songs. Like, I just love them. Like, Two People is like just this sullen love song, and it just feels very relatable, and just also Sam Fender's songwriting. Like, can we just take a moment to talk about this guy's songwriting? Like, it is phenomenal. Like, the lyrics that he comes up with, the guitar solos, everything feels so unique and different and just modern and amazing. Yeah, Sam Fender, great artist. Please listen to him. And last up, I'm going to mention Fleetwood Mac. Again, Rumours probably is one of my wait, is it Rumours or is it Tango? I'm looking like a real fake fan here. I've only really started to listen to Fleetwood Mac recently, so excuse the fact that I'm not 100% educated on them, but I absolutely adore Stevie Nicks' voice. Her voice is beautiful. Like, I love her stuff. In a couple of the songs, okay, please don't hate me, people, but in a couple of the songs, for whatever reason, she kind of reminds me of Miley Cyrus, the way that she sings. Or should I say Miley Cyrus reminds me of her? But, like, just some of the way that her vocals comes out, it just sounds a little bit like Miley Cyrus. Only very briefly, but I have heard it before. I don't know why I thought about mentioning that. I just did. But yeah, I love Fleetwood Mac. Been listening to them more recently. But again, like, I would have said a good 99% of the songs that I've listened to, I've already heard of before, purely because my dad, again, is a massive fan of these, and it's just stuff that I would listen to when I was little. So yeah, this kind of podcast has been talking about my favourite albums and artists, and I'm also giving some bands and artists for you to listen to as well, because it's quarantine. If you want to discover some new music, this is definitely your chance to. And yeah, I just thought I would give some music recommendations and talk about music, because obviously it is what I'm really passionate about. I mean, this channel is made based off of music, so yeah, that was today's podcast. If you would like to see me make like another kind of video like this where I talk about music, just let me know. I did get a lot of my friends asking me to talk about music, because obviously it is something that I'm really passionate about. If you would maybe like me to talk about a podcast where I like look at one of my favourite albums and kind of break it down, explain like different, like, I don't know, just like kind of break the album down, then let me know, because I would love to do that. I love music, so that is something that I would enjoy doing. I also got asked by one of my friends to do a weekly song recommendation. Obviously, as currently recording this, I'm not sure how often I'm going to be uploading the podcast. So far in my head, I do have a bit of an idea. I'm either going to upload one every month or one every 2 weeks. So yeah, obviously whenever I make a podcast from now on, I'm going to give you a song recommendation. And my song recommendation for today's episode is going to be Queen, Don't Stop Me Now. Like I say, the song just gets you in your vibes. If you don't want to listen to that song, just listen to any song by Queen. That's my podcast song recommendation. Please just listen to Queen, especially Don't Stop Me. Excuse me, I've got the hiccups. Especially Don't Stop Me Now. It just gets you in your vibes, and it's just a great song to listen to, like, no matter how you're feeling. Maybe if you're sad, it might not be the greatest song to listen to, but if you want to get out of a bad mood, then listen to it, because it's going to get you out of a bad mood. But yeah, that was today's podcast. I hope you did enjoy it. I've thoroughly enjoyed just kind of talking about music and stuff, and talking about what I love. So yeah, anyways, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a thumbs up and subscribe as always. Share the video with some of your other friends if they're looking for music recommendations, or you've got one of those friends where all they listen to is pop, then please send them this video and get them educated. But anyways, yeah, I'll see you in another episode.